Hey everybody, welcome to Jacob's Quest, and tonight I just got back from watching the brand new live-action adaptation of How to Train Your Dragon, which is an adaptation of a 2010 animated film that's gone on to spawn, what, two sequels, and an animated series, and now a theme park at Universal Studios. Yeah, they just opened a theme park at Epic Universe, I think. Anyways, so look, here's the thing. I am just a handful of years too old to have gotten into How to Train Your Dragon, right? Like, you know, my DreamWorks era of things was like the first Shrek, you know what I mean? And I think How to Train Your Dragon comes out in 2010. I'm already, like, I just graduated high school, I think, like, so I'm not, you know what I mean? I don't really care about the movie. I have seen it. I've seen it, I think, 2 or 3 times. I remember enjoying it. I remember, like, okay, yeah, that was a good movie, but, you know, I never bothered to watch it, or I don't think I've seen any of the sequels either. So this is not a franchise that I have an immense amount of nostalgia for. However, I do acknowledge it is a great franchise. A lot of people love it. I know that there's people only a handful of years younger than me that are like, this is their childhood thing, you know, like this would be like if God, you know, please do not make a live action Shrek, but this would be as if they made a live action Shrek. But and again, please do not do that. The idea is horrifying. Please don't do that. Anyways, so having said all that, I did vaguely remember what the plot is, and this movie is essentially a one-to-one of the original movie. I think they do add a handful of more scenes. Maybe they switch around some of the sequences of things, you know, like stuff just happens in a different order. But, you know, I would say a solid 95% of this is just an exact one-to-one of the movie. Like, you can compare large portions of the scenes exactly how they were. And that's kind of the interesting thing, is now we live in this era of, you know, live action remakes of animated movies that, you know, some of them aren't even 10 years old. So this one being 15, like, that's, you know, we're lucky that they waited this long, I guess. They could have done this 5 years ago. Anyways, I guess my thing is, when you're doing a live action adaptation of an animated movie, you seem to have 2 routes you can go, and we've seen Disney go both routes, one more often than not. The first route is you can try to stay as faithful as possible, right? Like, you can try to be like, we are literally just trying to remake that original movie in live action, and that's it, right? Maybe you change a couple lines of dialogue. Maybe you add, you know, a dialogue piece over here. Maybe you add a scene over here. But, you know, again, for 95% of it, like this movie, you're essentially just the same movie. Like, there's nothing too outrageously different at all. Everything kind of plays out the same. All the beats are the same. You have the same iconic scenes, you know. And the thing about this way of doing things is that really the only controversial aspect you can have is, you know, I guess the comparison, like how well you did, right? Like, did the music beats drop the same? Did it feel the same when certain events happen, and you're like, this is where all the heart and magic is in the animated form? So did you capture that well enough? Like, that's, you know, that's really where the controversial part is, you know. And also casting, which I think this one, early on when some of the casting was announced, I think there were some people online trying to do what they do, right? Like, I think with any pop culture thing at this point, it's gonna be like, hey, can we make this part of the culture war, you know? So I think this one almost got dragged into that, but they kind of gave up on that because there were bigger things to complain about. So, you know, anyways, my point being, they took this route where it's almost an exact one-to-one. The other route you can take when you're live action adapting something is, I would say, just the Lilo and Stitch route, I suppose, where you are going to still remake the same story, but you are going to make drastic changes. You know, you're going to take entire characters out. You're going to invent new characters and put those ones in. You're going to maybe even change the ending entirely. You're going to have whole new scenes. And this is where I would say, you know, of course it's all on a, you know, a sliding scale of like how much you're changing and all that, but this is where like Lilo and Stitch, I would say, was only around 70% the same movie, you know, like, so 30% of a different thing entirely. That's a big chunk, you know. That movie had entire characters missing, and characters were suddenly bad guys, and everything was different, right? And that one is open to a lot more controversy, because now you're making all these changes to something that people love, and you have to ask, every change that you make, is this one a positive change? You know, and if it's not going to be something that people are going to enjoy, you have to sit here and ask, well, then why did you do it? You didn't have to do it. You know, you making that decision actively made it worse. So, you know, and if those decisions just compound, you know, if you keep making this decision and that decision, and every single one of them is making it worse and worse and worse, you kind of end up with the Lilo and Stitch situation where you get a lot of people angry, right? And, you know, we've seen that work to varying degrees. Some are, you know, some get people really heated up, you know. Others, people don't really care about, you know. I think like Pinocchio is a good example. Like, no one really cared about the live action Pinocchio. No one really talked about it. But, you know, a Snow White, a Lilo and Stitch, oh, people are gonna talk about it. you make drastic changes, people are gonna talk about it. But How to Train Your Dragon it's safer. It's the safest way to go, honestly. And I think it's just, on the whole, it's kind of like this. It's like, we do not need these live action remakes to exist. I think generally everyone accepts that, right? Like, there's no real reason for this to happen other than money, right? Because now a studio can basically sell you the movie you already like. They can just sell you that movie again, you know, but it looks a little different now. So if they're gonna do that and people are gonna buy the tickets, I mean, hell, I saw it, so okay. I guess the safer route, and the one that you at least know people are gonna like, is try to go the 95% the same route. So having said all that, this movie is still delightful. The music swells, and you get those key moments where they're just flying on the back of the dragon and everyone's clapping and cheering. And, you know, I gotta say, my theater was packed, and my theater was full of people in their, you know, mid-20s. So when I say people who are only a handful of years younger than me, I'm talking about people in their mid-20s. You know, those people were there, and they were having a blast, and everyone was talking about, like, oh man, I had such a good time, this and that. Like, I was like, okay, this is, you know, for the generation right after mine, only a handful of years later, like, this is their moment. They're loving this thing, and I enjoyed it too. You know, it hit all of the right moments emotionally that it should have. It got you to care about this CGI dragon. It got you to care about this kid and his relationship with his father, and the budding romance between him and is it Ingrid, the girl, right? And it just, yeah, it did the thing. It did the thing just like the animated movie did. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people who still prefer the animated movie, but this one, I think, did a very good job of recapturing that energy. Everyone seemed really happy walking out of the theater. And so, yeah, I gotta say, like, if you are now a parent, you know, people in your mid-20s, if you're now a parent and you want to show your kid this movie for the first time, this is not a bad way to show them that movie, you know, because now you can show that to them in an IMAX theater, and it's all live action, and the CGI looks pretty great, and it's still the same. It's not like some kind of weird warped version of the one that you love. So I feel like this is a, you know, like this is a good way to do that. Yeah, overall, I think that's my only real thing about going the safe 95% the same route. There's not nearly as much to discuss, you know, because like once you basically say, like, all right, it's pretty much exactly the same movie with a slight couple differences here and there, but overall it's like the same. What more is there to say, right? Because generally I'm not someone who ever went back and checked out the other How to Train Your Dragons. So am I now gonna go do that? Am I gonna go look at the other animated versions? Probably not. I guess I'll just wait till they remake the sequels and then I'll watch those. Because yeah, I don't know. It's kind of like just buying a nicer redone print of a book. You know, it's still, the insides are still the same, but the cover is like a hard cover, and maybe it's got some like shiny foil on the top of your book cover, and it looks really nice. And like it's just a nicer version of the same book you already bought, and you've already read the book. Especially if you've already read it, you're like, I just wanted a nicer copy of it. I guess it looks shinier. But are you ever gonna actually read that book again? Maybe not. I don't know. You just want it to look nice on the bookshelf. So that's kind of what this feels like. Like it's How to Train Your Dragon. So anyways, I think anyone who's a massive fan of this franchise is gonna come out of this theater saying, hey, they did a really good job adapting that. Universal Studios is probably really happy that they just opened Epic Universe and they have a whole land dedicated to this, because I can see this being a wave of attention to that franchise now. And yeah, it was already a beloved franchise, but now it's gonna really just explode in popularity. I can imagine this being even bigger than it was before, because of this remake and people actually liking this one. So anyways, yeah, that's How to Train Your Dragon. It's, I imagine its popularity is gonna triple now. You're gonna see a lot more of this on your YouTube recommended page, and just people online talking about the franchise, and like, oh, I wonder who they're gonna cast as this character in the sequel, and that's probably what it's all gonna be about. But yeah, pretty much the exact same movie, but it looks really nice, and it's still got all the heart in it. So I mean, that's like the important part. Like, I still felt things when I was watching it. I was like, okay, you know what, I care about the characters, I care about what's happening, the music is doing its job really well. And when they're flying around and they're being chased by the giant dragon and they're having like that big fight, it looks really cool, in live action. And like, yeah, you did it, good job. Anyways, let me know what you guys think about How to Train Your Dragon. Are you fans of the franchise already, or if like me, you know of it but you're not really someone who ever paid attention to it? Is this going to encourage you to go back and watch the animated movies, and that way you can go ahead and watch 2 and 3 and 4? I don't know if there's a 4. Or are you just gonna wait? Are you just gonna wait for there to be a live action remake of those also? Because I promise you this movie's gonna make money, just based on how crowded my theater was, and they are gonna greenlight both of those sequels immediately. So anyways, let me know what you guys think. I'll see you guys later. Bye.